Hey everybody, so the decision for what to make for tonight's dinner was actually a tag team effort between my students at school and my family here at home. Yesterday I posted a challenge to them. I gave them a list of about 20 or so ingredients that I have here and asked them what I should cook for dinner. Kind of similar to Chopped, but you don't have to use everything in your basket. There were 20 or 25 responses, and actually they were all pretty good ideas, and they really were very varied. So I presented all those ideas to my family, and there were two finalists. The two finalists, which were a tie, because we actually had 2 votes for each, were American Chop Suey, which there were actually 4 different students who suggested, and a Juicy Lucy burger. So tonight I'm going to make American Chop Suey. They had a few different recipes on how to make it. I'm going to actually make it the way that I learned from my grandmother. So some of you might think this is totally weird, but the key to this whole operation is canned tomato soup. So we don't use tomato sauce, we don't use diced tomatoes or tomato paste or anything like that. We get all of our tomatoes from tomato soup. There are a bunch of people out there that love this and a bunch of people that think I'm a weirdo. So you can watch this and tell me what you think. It's a very simple recipe really though. So like I mentioned, we have the tomato soup. We're going to use 1 can of that. I've got 1 pound of ground beef. I'm going to dice half of this onion, and I've got a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. That's it. That's all we're going to put in there. First thing I want to do is oh no, I forgot about the pasta. We also have about half a pound of pasta that we're going to put in there. First thing I'm going to do is finish up my mise en place by dicing this onion. So an onion grows underground. It kind of grows like this, right? So the roots come down here, and the stem, like a scallion, comes up the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the stem end like this before I peel it. Now you'll notice it doesn't roll around. I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half right through that root end. I'll reserve this to use for something else later, but now because I've already made my cuts, it should be much easier for me to peel because I already have some cuts in the peel. So some people in my family don't love a big chunk of onion. We won't mention any names. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purposely dice this pretty fine. I'm going to use the shape of the onion to my advantage here, all the different layers here. I'm going to start off by making a cut at a slight angle here. But then I'm going to cut straight up and down, taking care that the tip of my knife doesn't go through this root end. And you'll see I'm pulling away and pushing down at the same time. At the end, I just make one other little cut. But now my cuts go all the way here to this root end. I don't want to eat that, but that's going to help hold it all together. Now I'm going to turn and just cut perpendicular to those first cuts and make a really fine diced onion. And just so I don't waste any, I can kind of cut up the little end there. And then that's all I've got for trash. All right, now that we have all of our prep done, it's time to start cooking. I have a enameled cast iron pan here. I'm going to drop my pound of ground beef in it. We want to hear that sizzle. Right away, I'm going to start to break this up a little bit. If you don't hear that sizzle, that means that your pot is not hot enough yet. It's still going to cook, but you're not going to get any browning on your meat. You're going to end up boiling your meat. This is about 85-15, this ground beef. Usually I'll use 80-20 for stuff, but it doesn't really matter. Use whatever you normally do. Now to my browning beef, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of pepper. I didn't mention that before, but I do like some pepper in there. This would typically be the time I would add salt, but because we're using so much Parmesan cheese, it's relatively salty. I'm going to wait and adjust my seasonings at the end. My beef is most of the way there. I'm going to go ahead and add in my onions. And I want to give these a chance to cook until they get translucent. This is a recipe that's really easy doubled. This is something we make a lot, and we'll keep it in the refrigerator for 5 or 6 days if it lasts that long. And just keep scooping it out. If the kids love it for lunch, I'll warm up one of their little thermoses and then add this to it, and it's still warm by the time they come to eat lunch. It's one of their favorites. They request it quite a bit. Now our onions have started to turn translucent. which is right where we want to be. If there's any browning on the sides, I'll kind of scrape it off a little bit. But now is the time to add our soup. So I'm going to add a whole can of the soup right in there. I want to make sure I scrape as much of it out as I can. All right. Now to me, this is probably the most important part of this recipe. I know I said I love it with the soup, but you don't want it to taste like tomato soup. So you really need to let the soup spread out and let it cook. Let it cook for a good 4 or 5 minutes on relatively high heat. You don't want it to burn on the bottom. But that's going to help change the flavor of it. That cooking of it, it'll blend with the onion flavor, it'll blend with the juices and the fat from the beef. That's more or less what our sauce is going to look like before we add our pasta. So we'll just let this cook for a few more minutes. Alright, so this has had a chance to cook for about 5 minutes or so. I'm happy with how it looks, I'm happy with how it tastes. I'm going to go ahead and add about half a pound of pasta. These are elbows, or whole wheat elbows actually, with ridges on them. I do like that they have these little ridges. It helps them hold on to the sauce better. I'm going to combine this in. Now this is a dish that you can make with ground beef like I did here. I've also done it with turkey, I've done it with venison. If you don't have quite enough soup, you can stretch it with a little bit of tomato sauce or even a little bit of ketchup, as long as you add it early and let it cook. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off, add all my Parmesan cheese right to it. Mix this right in. Then I'm going to call the kids down and let them taste it and see what they think. Lucy and Oliver! Hey guys, now that you're freshly showered and in your pajamas, would you mind telling everyone what the question is for this evening?
What is mise en place?
What is mise en place? Very important. So, we just made one of your favorites, American Chop Suey. Would you taste it and tell me how it is?
Sure.
It's actually served tonight with some of our sourdough bread that we made, loaded with butter, which is how we do it. All right, guys, what do you think?
Good. It's very good.
All right, that's what we like to hear.
Bye. Bye. Have a nice day.